I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you?
Boring. 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 Boring.
You got it work. Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages.
Welcome to another edition of Lembit Opik Live here on unprecedented.tv, where we find the facts, kill the spin, and tell it like it is as best we can. We do express our opinions, but we encourage you to do the same, but try not to separate our own views in such a way that it seems sneaky. We'll tell you if it's our opinion. We'll also tell you when the facts as best we can ascertain them. That means we get some great guests who are entitled to express their own view. Please do have a look at the archive or at Unprecedented TV on YouTube, where we are adding our whole back catalogue over time. Yes, we're teasing you. You may have missed them the first time round. They will be there. And thank you so much if you're already subscribing there. Really does help us a lot. We are the home of free speech. I like to think of us as free speech central, but it only works with your patronage, with your willingness to view and perhaps, if you're kind enough to do so, share our output. You can also share it from the X feed, for example, at Lembit Opik. Just feel free to repost. There is no copyright problem. You can take it, you can copy it, you can show it to other people, whatever you want. I'm telling you officially, that's absolutely 100% fine. Our first priority is to share free speech. And then, of course, we trust that over time, that will mean we don't beat the mainstream media. We become the mainstream media. That's where we want to go. Remember also, we've got a whole bunch of other shows developing with Nick Dark, The Dark Side, where there's dark, there's light. Tim Scott, Uncancelled. He's from the Freedom Association, and many others as well. And thank you so much for those who are watching Claire Dyer's show, Dire Consequences, where she highlights some appalling misjustices, or injustices, should I say, and miscarriages of justice, which hopefully we can actively help to put right. So a lot going on here on Unprecedented TV. End of the advert. Let's talk about what we're discussing today. You may have noticed over recent days and weeks, there's been this endless conversation about who's in charge of security in Europe. And there's a forgotten war. It's discussed with increasing discomfort by those who previously said that the great comedian Vladimir Zelenski could make an effortless transition from being a comedy man to a political man. I don't think that transition's gone very well, to be honest. That's my opinion. But then I've been in politics professionally for 40 years, and he has not. Luckily, I've never had to run a war. Unluckily, he has, partly because of what his puppet masters, the West, have told him to do. It seems to me we now find ourselves in the invidious position that Vladimir Zelensky can't even hold his front without retreating, despite the hundreds of billions of dollars thrown his way in support. What he does seem to have done, nevertheless, is cause vast casualties on the Russian and Ukrainian side. Who's lost more? It depends who you believe. My guest will be talking about that in just a moment. He's Dr. Marcus Papadopoulos, a historian and one of the most informed people I've been honoured to meet when it comes to the question of this whole issue. Marcus has been on various shows with me and always tells it like it is. He doesn't choose to please the audience. He chooses to inform the audience, and that's as it should be. Marcus, so good to get you here on Lembit Opik Live on Unprecedented TV. How have you been?
All things considered, I'm doing reasonably well, and thank you ever so much for having me on your show.
I'm delighted to have you here. And that's the usual measured expertise I expect from an erudite and linguistically impressive gentleman such as yourself. But it's your thoughts that I'm delighted to invite today. You've heard my general skepticism about the progress or regress by Volodymyr Zelensky and his acolytes. Let's start with something that's happened very recently. This is Donald Trump talking about the situation as he sees it. And to be honest with you, Marcus, it seems to me he's basically offering to sell arms to Europe. Let's have a look.
It's a great honor to have a friend of mine who's become very friendly over the last number of years. We knew each other before, but Mark is the head of NATO, Mark Rutte, Secretary General of NATO, highly respected by everybody that knows him, but in particular the European countries. They have great reliance on him, and he's done a fantastic job. And we had a tremendous meeting, I guess it's about a month ago, and I think Mark will tell you that it was really perhaps more important the date of November 5th. That was the election day. Maybe that was the most important, because we've made tremendous progress together. And one of the reasons that you're here today is to hear that we are very unhappy, I am, with Russia. But we'll discuss that maybe a different day. But we're very, very unhappy with them, and we're going to be doing very severe tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days. Tariffs at about 100%. You'd call them secondary tariffs. You know what that means. But today we're going to talk about something else. And as you know, we've spent $350 billion approximately on this war with Russia and Ukraine, and would like to see it end. It wasn't my war, it was Biden's war. It's not my war. I'm trying to get you out of it. And we want to see it end. And I'm disappointed in President Putin, because I thought we would have had a deal 2 months ago, but it doesn't seem to get there. So based on that, we're going to be doing secondary tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days. It's very simple. And they'll be at 100%. And that's the way it is. That can be more simple. It's just the way it is. I hope we don't have to do it. But regardless, we are going to be, we make the greatest military equipment in the world, whether it's missiles. You saw that recently in Iran, the way those planes flew in. They had every single, 14 bombs hit every target. Then you had the helicopters shoot a total of 30 bombs, 30 missiles, and they hit every single, Marco, is that right? Every single piece, every single target. And it was, I guess, on a scale of 0 to 10, they say it was about a 15. That's how successful it was. That's how lethal it was, a word they like to use nowadays. But it was an amazing, well-organized attack that people in this country wanted to do for 24 years. You know, when we had the pilots in last week, they were saying, "Sir, we've been practicing this for 24 years," meaning people, not them.
No, it seems to me that is just an arms deal. I think he's just trading, because he's building up, Marcus, to saying he'll sell the weapons to Europe to use in Ukraine. Now, we're used to the Making America Great Again type speech there, but what do you make of that? I'm not sure if you watched it when it happened at the beginning of the week, beginning of the second week in July. I'm just wondering, what do you make of all that? Is it credible?
I have seen the footage and I attach no importance whatsoever to it. First and foremost, the outcome of the war in Ukraine will be decided on the battlefield. Russia will not consent to a peace deal. Russia will not consent to a temporary truce. Russia has withstood everything that the Western ruling elites has thrown at it. Nearly 20,000 sanctions on Russia, and yet the Russian economy has not just withstood the barrage, it has prevailed. The Russian economy has grown in size. Also, NATO has saturated Ukraine with NATO weapons. sophisticated weapons, advanced weapons, state-of-the-art weapons, and it has not stopped the Russian army. Now that the Russian army is in Ukraine, nothing will dislodge it. Such is the importance that not just the Kremlin, but the average Russian attaches to Ukraine, both in terms of national security and culture. Turning to what Trump said, inevitably, British mainstream media has become very excited, is now of the opinion that this could be the turning point for Russia. This could mark the end of the Russian military campaign in Ukraine. Well, of course, these so-called journalists in Britain are nothing but useful idiots. They do not understand realpolitik. They do not understand the Kremlin. They do not understand the history of the lands which comprise Ukraine. And they most certainly do not understand military affairs. Trump has said that if the Kremlin does not consent to a peace deal, then he will impose tariffs to the tune of 100%. Well, that all sounds mightily impressive. But when one considers that trade between America and Russia is extremely low and pales in significance compared to, say, trade between Russia and Italy or Russia and Germany, then we realize that this threat from Trump amounts to nothing in practice. What I believe we are seeing in America is a struggle for power between the Trump administration on the one hand and the American deep state on the other hand. Sometimes we see Trump saying that America is going to walk away from the war in Ukraine. And then he says America will keep on supporting Ukraine in the war. That tells me there is a very serious struggle for power between Trump and the American deep state. Trump clearly does not see any importance for America in Ukraine. So he signed the minerals agreement with Zelenski a few months ago. Yet at the time, I said that minerals agreement amounts to nothing. Why? Because the Russian army is advancing on all fronts. The Russian army is advancing in Sumy, in Kharkov, in the Donetsk Oblast, in Lugansk, in Kherson, in Zaporozhye. The Russian army is poised to enter the oblast of Dnipropetrovsk. And as a result, many of those minerals which were assigned to Washington have now been captured by the Russians. So let
me just check that. You're saying, sorry to interrupt you. What you're saying, Marcus, is the attractive, juicy fruits of rare minerals, which presumably the likes of BlackRock really wanted and were investing in, because I don't think they really cared about the politics of it. They cared about the money. They've gone because they're on the wrong side of the front now.
Many of them have been captured by the Russian army, and that is the end of the matter. We talk about BlackRock having an interest in Ukraine. Well, it most certainly does. It's one of the most nefarious of companies in the world. But at the same time, the reason why I did not take the minerals agreement seriously is because of the following. The Trump administration and BlackRock will have serious experts advising them. And these serious experts will have told them, coming from a military background, will have told them that the Russian army is advancing and is capturing these minerals. That is why I believe that the minerals agreement, and I believe what Trump has said about tariffs on the Russian economy, amounts to a smokescreen. I, Lembit, am of the firm opinion that behind the scenes, Trump and Putin have come to an agreement over Ukraine. If you accept my premise then much starts to make sense. I believe that the Kremlin has given the Americans a free hand, so to speak, in various parts of the world. And in return, Trump has given the Russians a free hand in Ukraine. Now, inevitably, both sides will have to string this out. They can't, Trump can't allow Russia to all of a sudden enter Kiev, because then it will look very obvious. So I do believe there is a smokescreen in America at the moment. But at the same time, I believe that Trump, whilst he is not interested in Ukraine, he's far more interested, I believe, in a rapprochement with Iran. He's far more interested in America investing in Iran. He's far more interested in America trading with Iran. When it comes to Ukraine, he has no interest, but the American deep state does.
But that's interesting, because that would say that for all of the fighting talk by, for example, Keir Starmer, who even he seems to become aware of the fact that Volodymyr Zelensky isn't a great media opportunity now, even though he still carries on trying to meet with him and so forth. It seems to me that that this is bad money now. This is a junk bond to hang around and shake hands and be seen with Zelensky. Because if what you're saying is correct, then there is absolutely no point in spending billions of pounds supporting Zelensky, who is a failed war leader. He is a successful, highly accomplished clown, comedian. That's his trade. But he's a failed war leader. And so what we're watching on the screen there is actually complete vanity by the not just the British Prime Minister, but people like Macron and everybody else. Or am I being too harsh?
Not at all. I concur entirely. Starmer and Macron, for example, are useful idiots. They are puppets. They have no power whatsoever. They've been put into those positions to fulfill the instructions of their masters, which are the Western ruling elites, as I call them, or as most other people call them, the globalists. The Western ruling elites attempted to inflict a strategic defeat on Russia by defeating the Russian armed forces in Ukraine. They failed abysmally. They simultaneously attempted to destroy the Russian economy. Again, they failed abysmally. They know that Russia will emerge victorious, and that either all of Ukraine or most of Ukraine will be captured by the Russian army and will be absorbed into the Russian Federation. Trump can promise whatever weapons to Ukraine he wants. He can sell whatever weapons to the Europeans he wants. The reality is that Russia is a military and nuclear superpower, and there is not a single thing that the Western ruling elites or indeed Trump can do about it. That is the difference between a powerful country such as Iran and a superpower, a military and nuclear superpower. So why is the puppet Starmer saying what he is saying in regard to Ukraine? That Britain will continue to arm Ukraine, that Britain is ready to police the skies above Ukraine in the event of a peace deal? Because Starmer is attempting to detract attention away from the horrific situation in Britain at the moment. People who are familiar with my work know that for many years I have said that Britain is dead. The British people, however, are not dead. The British people are now starting to fight back. There is a cultural and spiritual revival in Britain. So Starmer, or the British establishment via the puppet Starmer, is attempting to detract public attention. He's trying to neutralize the cultural awareness, the cultural revival in Britain. And the British establishment is attempting to do that by saying to the British people that there is an enemy out there, and that enemy is Russia.
Well,
So that is why Starmer is saying what he is saying. He's trying to unify the British people, but it will not work.
Well, this is what he's been saying. Let's remember.
Develop a
coalition
of the willing, ready to defend a deal in Ukraine and guarantee the peace. Mr. Speaker, after all, the Ukrainian position is completely understandable. For them, the war did not begin 3 years ago. That was merely the latest and most brutal escalation. They have signed agreements with Putin before. They've experienced the nature of his diplomacy and the caliber of his word. We cannot accept a weak deal like Minsk again. No, we must proceed with strength, and that does now require urgently a coalition of the willing. Mr. Speaker, we agreed on Sunday that those willing to play a role in this will intensify planning now. And as this House would expect, Britain will play a leading role.
Well, you see, there's a problem with that, Marcus, because that was 4 months ago. That was 4 months ago. What's happened to the coalition of the willing?
When the British establishment, via the puppet Starmer, announced, quote, coalition of the willing, I said on television at the time that coalition of the willing is typical language of British officialdom, namely grand sounding with no meaning in practice. It amounts to absolute rubbish. First of all, who exactly is willing? The British people are not willing to go to war, especially with Russia, but indeed with any country in the world. The British people have now, largely speaking, woken up, and they are attempting to reclaim their country. That is the objective of the British people. So the British people are not willing. Those who are willing, of course, are the British establishment and their useful idiots, such as Starmer and Lammy. These are the ones who are willing. But then, even though the British establishment is willing, what is the British establishment going to do in practice? Is the British establishment really going to go to war with Russia, a military and nuclear superpower? Of course not. That would be suicidal for the British establishment. And of course, the British establishment do not wish to take any decision which could bring an end to their immense amount of wealth which they have. They do not wish to take any decision which will bring to an end their decadent, depraved lifestyles. So there will be no war against Russia. Coalition of the willing means nothing. Like Galtieri in Argentina, he invaded the Falkland Islands because his leadership was very unpopular and there was great resentment against him amongst ordinary Argentines. Today, we see the same thing. The reason why the British establishment is identifying Russia as, quote, an enemy is because the British establishment is aware that the British people have woken up and the British people wish to see an end to the British establishment and thereby reclaim Britain, their country. So that is why they are identifying Russia as a so-called enemy. That is why they come out with nonsense such as coalition of the willing. Nothing will come of it. Starmer, the puppet Starmer, has promised additional weapons for Ukraine. No doubt the idiots of British mainstream media will designate these new weapons as, quote, a game changer. Well, how many game changers have there been? The Russian army will not be defeated. The Russian army will emerge victorious. That is reality, and there's nothing the Western ruling elite can do about it.
Let's have a look at what we're up against. Those people who actually want to fight Russia.
Let's watch some devastating attack footage of Russian armed forces in Ukraine. In this first clip, Russian forces artillery unit wipe out in Ukrainian stronghold in Avdiivka direction on March 20th. For this strong attack, Russian troops used BM-21 Grad MLRS rocket launcher. It can deliver 122 mm high explosive shell at a distance of more than 10 kilometers. Unmanned aerial reconnaissance unit confirmed the hit. Now watch this point of view footage. A Russian Su-25 Frogfoot pilot managed to destroy a Ukrainian position in the Severodonetsk direction. The Soviet-era Su-25 is known for its capability of supporting ground troops in military conflict throughout history. This combat-tested workhorse is still a competent asset in the Russian armed forces. On March 20th, a Russian Su-25 ground attack aircraft crew delivered rocket strikes at a Ukrainian stronghold and manpower in Severodonetsk direction of the Special Military Operation Zone.
I mean, we're looking at incredible firepower here. I know this was not an objective analysis of who's doing what, but when you watch this, and it's quite difficult to actually find the Russian side in terms of video footage, but this is heavy-duty stuff. And I wonder what you think, Marcus, but it seems to me the only limitation to how much damage Russia does is how much Vladimir Putin is willing to invest in it, because it's scalable. Ukraine is flat out, but Russia's just on idle.
Ever since 1947, the Russian military-industrial complex has been tasked with preparing the Russian armed forces for a conventional war with America. Russia, if need be, today can call up 23 million soldiers. Russia has, all in all, over 26,000 tanks. Russian armaments factories are larger than many towns in Europe, such as in Britain. The Russian military-industrial complex is a juggernaut, and the Russian military simply is an unstoppable steamroller. Sometimes it can be disorganized, sometimes it can be inefficient, sometimes it can be clumsy. But once this steamroller gets going, nothing can stop it, short of a nuclear war. But if there was a nuclear war between Russia and America, then that would be the end of both countries and the end of mankind. So many people today, younger people today, because they are victims of a terrible education system, for example, in Britain, they do not understand what the Russian military is. And the very fact that the Russian military has so far in Ukraine only used between what I estimate 12 and 15% of its potential demonstrates how lethal this military machine is, because this military machine has inflicted well over 1 million losses on the Ukrainian army, well over 1 million, and has depleted much of NATO's stockpiles, which is something that Trump is acutely aware of. Indeed, he acknowledged that. So again, if you understand the Russian military, if you understand the importance attached to the lands which comprise Ukraine by the average Russian, then you will understand that there will be only one result in Ukraine, and that will be a Russian victory.
So in recent days, we've heard, and recent weeks really, we've heard Donald Trump say, I'm going to sell the weapons to Europe and you can give them to Ukraine. In other words, it's now becoming a commercial operation. We've heard very little about this coalition of the willing. Well, pretty much nothing, actually, to be honest with you, apart from occasionally from Keir Starmer, I suppose. But even he, with his incompetence and lack of political experience, seems to be realizing that it's a bit of an own goal to talk about it. And at the same time, the Russians just keep advancing. And it's a throttleable campaign for them. They can advance faster or slower, depending how much they want to invest in it. So, Marcus, in summing up where we stand now, two questions. First one is, who's winning this war? And secondly, how will it end?
As I have said since day one of the Russian military campaign in Ukraine, the Russian military will emerge victorious. I have no doubt that the Russian army will advance to and capture the oblasts of Zhytomyr and Vinnytsia, which, if you are looking at a map of Ukraine, are to the west of Kiev. So at that point, the Russians will be in control of, let's say, approximately 70% of Ukraine. Will the Russians advance further into the westernmost part of Ukraine, what is historically known as Eastern Galicia? I don't know. I have my doubts, because in that part is where you find vehemently anti-Russian sentiments. Why? Because there is a lot of Polish, Lithuanian, and Austrian blood in that part. That is, much of the population there is Catholic. So I don't know if the Kremlin really want to advance into Eastern Galicia, because by advancing into Eastern Galicia and absorbing oblasts such as Lvov, Ivano-Frankivsk, and Ternopil, the Russians will bring populations into Russia which are vehemently anti-Russian and which will be troublesome for Russia. So I might be wrong, but I suspect the Russian army will stop at Zhytomyr and Vinnytsia. What will the Western ruling elites do after that? Well, they will no doubt say that there is now a Russian threat to Poland, there is now a Russian threat to the Baltic states. They will insist on increasing military expenditure. But again, it will amount to nothing in practice. Trump sees an opportunity for America to make money from this war, and he will sell weapons to the Europeans, and the Europeans will then forward them on to the Ukrainians. Who's going to benefit? Well, it will be the American economy. It certainly will not be the economies of Europe. So what we are seeing now is the emergence of a new and enlarged Russia. We will see a very powerful Russia emerge, because a Russia without Ukraine can never wield the influence and power that Russia wielded in the Soviet period, which is a major reason as to why the Western ruling elites have lusted after Ukraine ever since it became independent in December of 1991. They also, of course, want Ukraine in NATO so that Russia can be enclosed on its western borders, because a Russia which is enclosed on its western borders will be a Russia which is weakened in Europe and weakened in the world as a whole. So again, there is nothing that the Western ruling elites can do to stop the Russian army advancing. There is a severe shortage of manpower in Ukraine, and that is terrible. This war, Lembit, could have been avoided. But alas, the Western ruling elites have an insatiable lust for war, for power, for wealth, and that is why this war broke out.
Thank you so much. We'll return to this again very soon. That is Dr. Marcus Papadopoulos giving his view. I'd like to hear yours. If you're interested in expanding this debate, please do like, and more than anything, repost this in whatever mode you're looking at it through, whether it's X or YouTube or elsewhere. I'm very, very happy, and we at Unprecedented are very happy to widen the debate. So please do that if you'd like to. More than anything, I draw this conclusion from what Dr. Papadopoulos said. the Ukraine situation is unwinnable by the West. Donald Trump is selling weapons to Europe, which is a good trade deal, but it won't make any difference to the outcome because Russia is using less than 1/7 of its firepower and it's still making gains. And all the while, Keir Starmer's coalition of the willing becomes more silent and Volodymyr Zelensky becomes less and less of a media asset. My prediction is that this will end on terms largely dictated by Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. And if Dr. Papadopoulos is correct, those terms have already been agreed. Hope you found that interesting. Do have your say on next. You may completely disagree, but I'd love to hear your point of view and continue the dialogue. Hopefully, Dr. Papadopoulos will grace us with his presence again in the near future. It is an evolving situation. More than anything, thank you to the team and thank you to you for giving me some of your time. Watch out for the other shows as well. The Dark Side coming soon, where there's dark, there's light, an insight into the human condition. Christine Joanna Hart with Inside the Mind, studying the psychology of extreme behavior, good, bad, and ugly. Tim Scott with Uncancelled. He is, of course, the Supremo at the Freedom Association. And Claire Dyer with Dire Consequences, where she looks at injustices and things that go wrong in our society. So much more as well. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back again, as usual, every morning at 08:30 on weekdays. And don't forget to also watch warrenthornton.com. On Sunday especially, I'm there. But he will also be feeding into Unprecedented. It's all go over here. Please do help us by retweeting and sharing what you see here. I'm Lembit Opik. This was Lembit Opik Live on Unprecedented TV. I'll see you soon.
This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you?
Boring. 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 Boring.
You got it work. Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
I call again for immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages,